Alright, this video is going to look at cropping and how we can use cropping effectively. There are two ways of getting into the crop panel. We've got our tool right here that we can press, or you can use the keyboard shortcut R to get into your crop overlay. This image has been cropped already just a little bit. You can see that it's getting me in closer to our little marmot right here, getting in nicely there. Getting a little out of focus stuff going on here, but that lens doesn't have the most pleasing out of focus highlights back in there. But let's just look at this. I'm gonna press the reset button right here to reset our crop. So this is what the photo looked like here. So I've dead centered my subject, which is fine. You know, I was a ways away from him. Everything kind of lines up. The rocks frame that little guy pretty nicely. But by cropping, I can bring it in and create an image that is going to be just a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So by doing this, so here I've placed my subject now off center just a little bit. In the crop mode, we have a few different overlays that we can use. So if you go up to Tools and you go to Crop Guide Overlay, we can do grid or thirds, golden spiral, or golden ratio. Let's go look at thirds. I like thirds. Thirds are good. All right, so here in thirds, our idea is, you know, if we had dead centered this is reset again, you can see that my subject is right in the middle of the frame. Now by pulling in here, I've got my aspect ratio locked right now. Now I'm putting the subject into a third of the frame. I'm kind of lining them up just a little bit here. And there's just some different ways that we can kind of do this to make the subject a little more interesting. You can see now my eye goes right here to the marmot. There's room over here on the other side if I wanted to put some copy or something. But it, you know, we've got a nice balance to the frame. So cropping is a really useful tool for helping you get in just a little bit closer and make a more compelling image. But sometimes we just can't, there's not a lot we can work with. We're just shooting with what we got, and then we need to adjust kind of as we go. All right, so in that crop tool, let's just look at a couple of things. Aspect right here is going to be what your aspect ratio is. So right now it's locked on the original, which is the same as doing a 2x3 or a 4x6. And that's the ratio of my camera sensor, okay? And then, in fact, let's just zoom, let's reset this for a second. And if I looked at 1:1, that's gonna be a square. 8x10 is a rectangle, and that could go either way. I could grab my tool here if I wanted to, my crop tool, and then drag that out, and I could make it into a there we go, into horizontal. 5x7 is similar to 4x6. It just crops in a little bit on the edges there, on the sides, and then 2x3 is our standard one. I've gotten a few that I've added in here for different needs at different times. There's some video ones in there. So if we go to original, let's just look at that. Now you've got this lock bar right here. The lock off will then allow you to crop freely. And this can be fine until you need to have an image fit a certain dimension somewhere, and then it's getting smushed and not working the way you want it to. So I always like to crop to an aspect ratio that I need, and that usually gives me just a little bit more flexibility. Now, as I'm adjusting my crop, you'll notice my info here is changing, and that will show me what my cropped pixels are going to be and how much of my image I'm kind of basically throwing away. So every time we crop, we are throwing something away, and our ability to print that image larger and true to size is going to decrease. So you can't just crop in willy-nilly. It might look okay on your screen, but as soon as you're going to go to print or something, then it can be a bit of a problem. So if I zoom in here, I'm zoomed in at 100%. And I'm checking out that little marmot. He's nice and sharp and focused. Remember, our navigator over here is where we can use to zoom in to different levels. So this would be, whoops, 2:1 right here. I can also take this little bar. I can move it around to get where I want to go. Zooming back out to 1:1, or I can fit it in my box right there. Remember, R is your keyboard shortcut. You can also add a little angle to it if you wanted to. And then if you didn't like that and you wanted to straighten it back up, a cool tool is to take the level actually, and you can actually just drag this across, and that would, like, in theory, straighten this up. That's better. Whoa. Of course, we can always hit the reset button also right there. All right, let me know what questions you guys have with cropping. It's always, it's one of those things that sometimes you need to get a little advice on, I think, from people as to what the best way is to go. And of course, the cool thing is I can always go back in my history here, and I can probably pull up when I looked at that, and that's how I had it cropped originally. So I can always go back in time there really easily. All right, thanks for watching and learning about cropping.